All right, so today we're diving into something pretty wild. The lionfish invasion impacting Florida's coral reefs.
Yeah.
We've got some awesome footage from PBS NewsHour. They interviewed diverse scientists, even chefs.
Interesting.
It's kind of crazy how these beautiful fish are causing so much chaos.
Mm.
I mean, how did they even get to the Atlantic?
Mm.
And is there anything we can do to stop them?
Well, one thing that's really striking about lionfish is just how effective they are as predators.
Right.
They have those dramatic looks and flowing fins, but they're absolute eating machines. The PBS video mentioned that they can eat up to 90% of their body weight daily.
90%. That's an insane amount of food.
It is.
They even showed a dissected lionfish with over 50 small fish in its stomach.
Wow.
Like, seriously, talk about a seafood buffet. But what does that kind of appetite mean for the overall health of the reefs?
Well, imagine this, just one lionfish on a reef can gobble up enough to wipe out 65% of the fish population in just 2 years.
No way.
Yeah, it's not just a few missing fish, it's a total ecosystem meltdown.
That's way worse than I imagined.
Yeah.
So these guys are basically eating machines with no off switch.
Pretty much.
But I thought lionfish were native to the Pacific, not the Atlantic.
Right.
How did they even end up here?
The main theory, and the one they talked about in the PBS video, is accidental release from home aquariums back in the 1980s.
Really?
Seems like it only took a handful of these escapees to create the huge population we see today.
So the entire Atlantic lionfish population can be traced back to a few rogue aquarium fish. That's wild.
It is pretty amazing.
But what makes them so tough to control? Do they even have any natural predators in the Atlantic?
That's the problem. They don't, and as you saw in the video, even trying to catch them is a dangerous game.
Yeah.
Divers were describing their venomous spines as 50 times worse than a wasp sting, pain that can last for months.
Ouch. I think I'll stick to admiring them from a distance.
Probably a good idea.
But 2 million eggs per year per female. How can we even begin to manage that?
It's a huge challenge, and to be honest, complete eradication is probably impossible. They can be found in a crazy range of depths, from shallow reefs down to over 1,000 feet.
Wow.
It makes tracking and removing them incredibly difficult.
So what are people doing to fight back against this invasion? They can't just be letting the lionfish take over.
You're right, there are some really innovative efforts underway. Organizations like REEF, which they featured in the PBS piece, are doing some great work, raising public awareness, sponsoring lionfish derbies, and even researching new ways to control the population.
Derbies, like fishing tournaments.
Exactly. But with a conservation quiz, divers compete to remove as many lionfish as possible, which helps reduce their numbers and provides valuable data for researchers. And get this, they've even come up with some pretty ingenious tools to capture these spiky invaders safely.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
What kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, one of the coolest gadgets is called a zookeeper. It's basically this clear plastic cylinder that divers use to trap the lionfish underwater. Think of it like a specialized fish container that prevents those venomous spines from doing any damage.
Definitely sounds safer than trying to wrangle them by hand.
For sure. And they also showed off these modified spear guns called lionfish slayers.
Right.
They're designed to target lionfish specifically, so they minimize harm to other species and the reef itself.
So we've got derbies, specialized traps, and even lionfish-specific spear guns.
Yep.
Sounds like people are getting pretty serious about tackling this problem.
They are. And here's where things get really interesting. The fight against lionfish might actually involve our appetites.
Eating our way out of an ecological crisis. Now, that's what I call a solution. But is that even a realistic possibility?
It might just be. One of the key strategies they're exploring is creating a market for lionfish as a food source.
Oh, wow.
It incentivizes removing them and could potentially help control their numbers. The PBS video even had a chef raving about how delicious they are. Apparently, people line up when it's on the menu.
Wait, so we're helping the environment by eating them? And they actually taste good? I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, the video showed several people trying lionfish for the first time, and they all seemed really impressed. They described the meat as being light, white, flaky, and mild in flavor.
Okay, that sounds pretty promising. I'm starting to see the appeal. But realistically, can eating lionfish really make a dent in their population?
That's a great question. And while it's unlikely that we'll be able to completely eradicate them, promoting lionfish as a delicious and sustainable food option could be a game changer. Think of it like weeding a garden. You might not get rid of every single weed, but you can definitely keep them under control.
I like that analogy. So it's about finding a balance, not wiping them out entirely, but managing them so they don't overwhelm the ecosystem.
Exactly. And the economic benefits can't be ignored either. Commercial fishermen are seeing increased demand and profits from lionfish sales. Even Whole Foods is offering it when available.
It's amazing how something that started as a purely ecological threat is now creating economic opportunities.
Yeah.
Talk about turning lemons into lemonade.
Right.
But I'm still curious about the taste. If we're going to be eating our way out of this problem,
Yeah.
I need to know more about what I'm getting into.
Well, the PBS video featured a chef in Fort Lauderdale who's a huge advocate for using lionfish in his dishes.
Yeah.
He compared it to snapper in terms of its versatility in the kitchen. Sautéed baked tacos, he said the possibilities are endless.
Okay, that's encouraging. So we're not just talking about some bland, rubbery fish. This is something chefs are getting excited about.
Hmm.
It seems like we really could eat our way out of this problem, one delicious lionfish dish at a time.
That's the hope. But it's important to remember that this is a complex issue with a lot of moving parts.
Right.
While promoting lionfish as a food source is a promising solution, it's not a silver bullet. We need to consider all angles from the ecological impacts to the economic implications.
That's a great point. This has been a fascinating deep dive so far with so many twists and turns. Who knew that a beautiful fish could wreak so much havoc, yet also hold such potential as a culinary delicacy? This just goes to show that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges, there's always hope, innovation, and in this case, maybe even a delicious meal to be found.
Absolutely. This is a story about the resilience of nature, the adaptability of humans, and the surprising connections that can emerge from the most unexpected places.
Speaking of surprising connections, I'm curious about the journey of lionfish from their native Pacific waters to the Atlantic. If they weren't intentionally introduced, how did they manage to cross oceans and establish themselves in a completely new environment? It's like an ecological mystery novel.
It is quite a mystery. The prevailing theory points to those accidental releases from aquariums, but there's always a check other factors played a role. Perhaps currents transported lionfish larvae, or maybe they hitched a ride in ballast water from ships.
Like a little stowaways with a taste for adventure and a whole lot of Atlantic fish.
Exactly. And each new piece of information we uncover helps us better manage the situation and prevent similar occurrences in the future. But speaking of prevention, I'm curious about the steps being taken to ensure this doesn't happen again. With so many exotic species being kept in aquariums, how can we prevent another lionfish situation from arising?
That's a great question. What are the experts saying about preventing future invasions?
Well, there's definitely a growing focus on responsible pet ownership, and stricter regulations on the import and sale of exotic species are being considered. Public education campaigns are also crucial to raise awareness about the potential dangers of invasive species.
So it sounds like a multi-pronged approach is needed, and that makes sense. We need to address this from all sides: policy, education, and individual responsibility.
Absolutely. It's going to take a concerted effort from government scientists, the aquarium industry, and the public to effectively prevent future invasions. This isn't just a local problem, it's a global one.
That's a great point. What happens in one part of the world can have ripple effects across the globe. The lionfish invasion really drives home the interconnectedness of our planet and the importance of proactive conservation efforts.
Absolutely. This entire situation underscores the need for a global perspective on conservation and the power of collective action. We need to learn from our past mistakes and work together to protect our planet's biodiversity for future generations.
Okay, so we've explored the problem, the challenges, and even some potential solutions. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question to ponder. We've talked about controlling the lionfish population through fishing and encouraging people to eat them. But what if we took things a step further?
Oh, how do you mean?
Like, could there be even more innovative ways to use these fish? What if instead of just seeing them as a problem, we looked at them as a potential resource?
That's an interesting perspective, and it's one that some researchers are already exploring. You know, there are some really intriguing possibilities emerging that go beyond simply controlling their numbers.
Ooh, intriguing. Tell me more. What kind of possibilities?
Well, for instance, some scientists are looking into using lionfish venom for medical purposes.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not, that potent venom, the stuff that causes such intense pain, could actually hold the key to developing new painkillers or even treatments for cancer.
No way. That's incredible. So the very thing that makes them so dangerous could also be used to create life-saving treatments. That's amazing.
It is. It's a perfect example of how challenges can often lead to unexpected opportunities. And there's another potential use for lionfish that's gaining some traction. And this one involves their spines.
Their spines. I don't really see those as a useful resource.
Uh-huh.
What could they possibly be used for?
You might be surprised to learn that some artisans are using lionfish spines to create jewelry and other decorative items.
What?
Yeah. When you look at them closely, they actually have these intricate patterns and a really unique texture.
Wow, I would have thought of that. So we could be wearing lionfish earrings or necklaces? I love it.
Exactly. It's a way to turn a threat into something beautiful and raise awareness at the same time.
It's like turning these invasive species into a fashion statement.
Right. And it taps into that whole trend of upcycling and finding creative ways to reuse materials.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey. From this beautiful but invasive fish causing chaos in the Atlantic to lionfish tacos, potential cancer treatments, and even fashionable jewelry. I mean, who would have thought?
It really shows you the power of human ingenuity and our ability to find solutions in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. And it highlights how interconnected everything is, from the depths of the ocean to our dinner plates, our medicine cabinets, and even our fashion choices.
You know, the lionfish invasion really serves as a powerful reminder that even small creatures can have a huge impact on the balance of ecosystems,
Right.
and that our actions, both individually and collectively, can have far-reaching consequences.
Well said. So for our listener who's been on this deep dive with us, what would you say is the key takeaway from all this information about lionfish? What's the one thing you want them to remember?
I think the main takeaway is that the lionfish invasion is a complex issue with no simple solutions.
Hmm.
But it's definitely not a hopeless situation. By combining scientific research with innovative approaches and a healthy dose of human ingenuity, we can manage this challenge and protect our precious marine ecosystems.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
And remember, even small actions can make a difference, whether it's supporting organizations like REEF making sustainable seafood choices or simply spreading awareness among your friends and family. Every step we take contributes to the solution.
Absolutely. And perhaps one day we'll look back at the lionfish invasion not as a disaster, but as a catalyst for innovation and a deeper understanding of our interconnectedness with the natural world.
That's a hopeful thought to end on. So to our listener, as you go about your day, keep the lionfish in mind. They're a reminder that even the smallest creatures can have a big impact, and that even in the face of challenges, there's always hope and opportunity to be found.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world around us.
We've covered so much in this lionfish deep dive, it's amazing. From their invasion of the Atlantic to all the incredible ways people are fighting back. But there's one question that keeps popping up in my mind.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we talked about how important research is for understanding and managing this whole lionfish situation. But I'm curious about what specific areas of research are actually making the biggest impact. Like, what are the scientists really focused on right now?
That's a great question, and there are a few avenues of research that are proving really insightful. One area that's getting a lot of attention is lionfish genetics.
Genetics?
Yeah, scientists are trying to figure out how these fish have adapted so well to a brand new environment. They're not from here, but they're thriving.
So are there like specific genes that give them an advantage in the Atlantic?
Exactly. By analyzing their DNA, researchers can pinpoint those genetic traits that make them such successful invaders, and that information can then be used to create more effective control strategies.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If we can understand what gives them an edge, we can hopefully find ways to outsmart them. What other research areas are proving valuable?
Another fascinating area is lionfish behavior. Scientists are studying their hunting patterns and their reproductive habits, even their social interactions.
I bet understanding their behavior is key to developing those targeted control methods we were talking about earlier.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, knowing their favorite hunting spots or where they like to spawn can help us focus our efforts in the areas that will have the greatest impact. And get this understanding, their social dynamics could even lead to new ways to mess with their breeding cycles.
So it's not just about catching individual lionfish. It's about taking on the whole population. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And what about research into how we can actually use them? Any new developments on those medical uses for their venom or even their spines?
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, research into the biomedical potential of lionfish is really starting to take off. There are studies looking at the venom as a painkiller and its potential for treating some types of cancer.
Wow, it's mind-blowing that something so dangerous could actually help relieve pain or maybe even cure diseases. Are there any promising results so far?
It's still early, but the initial results are encouraging. Some compounds in the venom have shown some real promise against cancer cells in the lab, but of course a lot more research is needed before we see any of this translate into actual treatments for people.
I understand. But even the possibility is pretty incredible.